Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Zoom, you can see how many participants. On YouTube, you don't. So you can put it on YouTube. You can tell them that there is thousands of people listening. See, on Zoom, you can see how many. On Zoom, you can see how many participants. YouTube, you don't. Yeah. Vegetarian, we have a now. Yes. Okay. I'll do bigger.
I sort of could sit on that bench. Yeah, I want that better. Video ahead of the what do you think you got?
Danny, happy birthday. Thank you. Please enjoy. Is he going to be on the screen? Yeah.
Maybe he's there the whole time just watching.
Are you here like in a month?
Oh, yeah.
Whatever the plan is. I gotta learn from you. You're the one that makes the phone calls. I barely call them. You're. Oh, yeah, I'm playing stuff.
Fine. Just to keep in the chance whenever Kaplan comes on, because I don't want anybody to run away. So just share a story. That talked to me, and we'll talk to you. And then afterwards, everybody can feel free to bring together until the Kaplan comes on. Anyway, she'll be on in a minute. Anyways, so a story I heard from Rabbi Jacobson. He was there. He said he was by the Walker. He was also raised with Rabbi Khan. Khan, came once to the dormitory by night, welcome, and the Alpha Brandon, it's always good welcoming out of the dormitory, probably after lights out, it's operation. And Rabbi Khan shared with them the story that recently happened with him, that a Walker came to him, a Walker that was not a Walker, a Walker that learned in the Literature Yeshiva. And he was a Walker that struggled in learning. For his friends to learn Amar Gemara would take a week, or him would take a month. And father, and especially in his circles where there was a big emphasis on the learning and gaining a lot of knowledge and finishing shots and becoming a big puzzle. And he felt like it's really not in his incapacity to do it. It's, he struggled so much in learning on some piece of Gemara. For him to learn the whole shots and for him to become a level just not teach him, it's not fair. So this Walker being very resourceful, so he went to Rosh Yeshiva to ask him. So the Yeshiva told him that there has to be Gdolim, but in order to be Gdolim, there has to be knowledge, there has to be students. Can't everybody be a Gadol. So apparently you're going to be the Talmud. So you'll fulfill your tafkid. But obviously that wasn't a very satisfying answer. So he went to his other Rabbi, whoever it was, and he told him that every Rebbe has to have sponsors, has to have balabas to pay for everything. So there'll be a different Gadol, and you'll be the balabas. Obviously, that wasn't very satisfying either. So he went to his other Rabbi, and his Rabbi told him, Nissan and Neshama and previous Gilgul, they probably did some Averis, and that's why you can't be a Gadol. Anyway, he's going back and forth with all these his teachers, and not giving him a satisfying answer that will comfort him why it's not fair that he can't be a Gadol. So Saul advised him. I think Saul told him that Yochanan gave a shir. I mean, that yeshiva gave a Tanya yeshiva or something, or nearby. So he went. He wasn't a but Saul came. So finally he came to Rabbi and asked Rabbi this question. So Rabbi said he doesn't know the answer, but she wrote a letter to the Rebbe. So he sat down with the book and he wrote a letter to the Rebbe with his detailing all his complaints and the answers that he got, and I was not satisfied. And he got an answer back from the Rebbe. And the point of the answer is like this. I don't remember all the details, but this was the point of the answer. That the Eibishter created everything in the world for a purpose. Nothing was created levatala. There's nothing that wasn't created for a purpose. And in addition to that, everything Hashem created has the potential to fulfill that purpose. Every person was created for a certain purpose. Every person has a job. And Hashem gives every person the capabilities to do his job fully. And they already concluded that when someone fulfills his purpose, when someone does his best to fulfill his purpose as much as he could, there's no greater gadol than someone that fulfills his full potential. And anyway, I really like the story. It's a very telling story and very meaningful. That are obviously we look up to people that are greater than us and we learn from them. But our goal is to do the best that we can do. And that's all that everyone wants. Everyone doesn't want us to be everyone wants us to be who we are and fulfill our purpose to do the best that we can do. And that's like the story with the musician Anatoly that he says that when he comes in Lamaila, that I'm going to ask him, if they ask him, why weren't you like Leisha? And if they ask him why you're not whatever, all this idea, he said, well, I'm not there. They can ask me why weren't you Susha, and then I don't have anything to answer. So time, listen, it's his birthday, and the birthday, the Mazel was very strong, and it was definitely a reference to us all. But we shall have a stock and everything that we need to fulfill the best that we can do. Carry our mitzvahs, and time. Must be everything else. Okay. They cost me. I'm sure if you want to say on.
What did you do?
I'll get in there all the way.
All right, l'chaim everyone, as we wait for Rabbi Kaplan. So just a quick verse about Rabbi Kaplan. We go back a long time. Very exciting to have such a Hashem mentor over here, such a high-profile rabbi. Hopefully, we can fill in the seats so he doesn't get his fault. He shouldn't fill the head. He speaks only for hundreds of people. But before we begin, I'll just give you an idea of where some of us are coming from. Nissan. Kind of like the default thing. Number one, Nissan is very important to me for a number of reasons. When I first went on Shlichus, it was the day that my first, many of us, you have to move around a number of times. Right? We hope to make it not have to move around too much or have to change our Shlichus. But my first Shlichus, I remember that I took the shtar and it gave me such pleasure, such a feeling, such a rush to stand in front of the Rebbe by the oil and to read over how I was going to be treated for the next, what I signed up for the next few years. There was something that went through me and I felt like I was a soldier standing on point. A soldier on point, reporting into duty. I'm about to take off. I'm about to do what my neshama was meant to be. A few years later, I'll tell you about. This is something that many of us could think about. Years later, there were hardships. Kind of hardships that some of you. Oh, no, that's the wrong thing. Is that Rabbi?
I'll set him up meanwhile. You go on.
What's that?
No, you go. I'm setting it up. I'm setting up meanwhile. You go.
Hardships that at some point I was holding on by a thin thread. Managed by a strand. Had so many studies going on. The ikr finding teachers could be very, very difficult. Big Nissan over here, but even more, you're in the boondocks and you're in the suburbs of America. It's very hard to find both Yiddish teachers and secular teachers. So at one point, in the summer, I was walking on a hike with my family in the woods, and the teacher that I had just hired after a whole summer eating my kishkas, that I'm not going to have a teacher and I'm not going to be able to face my parents to tell them that we have it together. This teacher that I finally got the Friday before called me up on Sunday and said, I changed my mind. Literally, I passed out right then and there. Forget about the walk with my family. I didn't want to walk anywhere. I wanted to walk to bed. You know, I didn't want to do anything. And so the next morning, what's that? How long ago was this? It wasn't this year. It was about, I want to say it's about, the walk back to the car after being disinterested was 1,000 years. Yeah. About 10 years ago, a decade ago. So I basically, when I'm holding at this point, I believe that everybody should go to the oil. It's a great place. Some people that feel it's insanity, but you have to communicate to the Rebbe. This day is the kind of day that you think in your mind about communicating with the Rebbe. The Rebbe will speak to you any which way you come to, because it's not limited to the confines of this world, this earth. There's these, like Eliyahu Hanavi, there's many ways to reach you. So when I woke up, couldn't sleep, it was 3 a.m.
You hear me?
I went to the mikveh. Rabbi Kaplan here.
We're setting it up.
Went to the mikveh. Came back, went to my office in the home. I wrote a letter.
You hear me?
4 o'clock in the morning. In this letter, I wrote at the end of the letter that I don't know what I'm doing, but if something doesn't happen, I hope the Rebbe doesn't have to pay that against me. That you think in a crazy way. I was thinking crazy way when I was Christian. I hope the Rebbe doesn't have to pay that. Okay. You just tell me when.
Could you hear me?
You ready?
No, you can tell. I'll let you know.
Okay.
I hear you, Shmuley.
Oh, there we go. Okay, we hear you as well.
With a letter to Mrs. Farbrengen, the Rebbe writes to her, the Rebbe says, 2 major points. Point number 1, all you have it for the whole time. Point number 2, you need to know that I have 2 types of people. One type of person is an executive. An executive is the person that carries the weight of the institution. The executive is the person that lives day and night on the whether or not things are going to go smoothly or not, whether children are going to learn, whether Balabatim are going to have their opinion. That's what an executive is. With the executive position, you get all the Rabbi, but you also get all the staff. Okay, you get a person that is a clerk. You're a clerk. You can clerk in, you can clerk out. You check in, you check out. I know you were a teacher in Lavitude Shira, which I was a teacher in Lavitude Shira, like here. And I think that would be happy for you to do because you're a clerk. You have no problems. You check in, you check out. But you need to know that you're my executive and hang in there. Number 2, this is the part that really counts. Could you imagine the hashkafa process from the day you were born to bring to this very moment all the incidences that happened that cultivated you forward in that specific way to bring each and every one of us to where we are to do what we need to do?
Okay, testing Rabbi Kaplan. You hear me?
I hear you. Somebody else is speaking.
Okay. Yeah, okay, he's going to call you.
Kaplan, Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem val
Get on
benechem.
practice. Hey, how are you? Oh, there you
Einam,
go.
Shalom Aleichem, was machst du?
Yeah.
Baruch
Baruch Hashem,
Yadal
it's so good to
Afnisi
have you here.
It's an honor to be in Texas.
So good to be back in Texas from what I understand. The ganze Olam Rash, it says, we remember Rabbi Kaplan.
You know, the Baal Shem
All right,
Tov
without
taught
further ado.
that when you go to a place, you
Right.
have to come back. You leave over nitzutzes. I'm glad I could do it this way. L'chaim, l'chaim yidden, l'chaim, l'chaim, l'vracha, freilichen yidal, listen to all of you. Zeh hayeh masa Hashem nagila v'nismach avei, l'chaim. The Gemara tells us, and the Haggadah, it's a Mishnah. The Haggadah quotes the Mishnah. V'chol der v'der chayev adam liris es atzmei ki ilu hu yatsa mi Mitzrayim. That in every generation, a Yid is obligated to see himself as if he would have left Mitzrayim. The Rashbam says on these words, Lahare Satzmei. Rashbam is the grandson of Rashi. The areas of the Talmud, of the Gemara, that Rashi didn't complete before his terrestrial passing, his grandson Rashbam filled in. Nobody was like Rashi, but he did his best to fill in. So Rashbam says, what is the meaning of Liris es Atzmei Kilo Yatzim in Mitzrayim? He sees himself as leaving Mitzrayim. It's not exactly a reasonable thing to say. Rational, reasonable people from the 21st century would call that a delusion. Ki'ilu hu yatsa, as if he left Mitzrayim. So Rashbam says that in halachic prose, it means lahares. It means to demonstrate. The notion of reclining, notion of focusing on the night of Pesach, that everything should be punctuated with a sense and spirit of liberty, as if you yourself would have left Mitzrayim, as if you would have experienced this in real time. You would sit, you would be joyous, you would be happy, as if we would be sitting by a Farbrengen with the Rabbi Yudal of Nissan, as if, lahare satzmei. You don't feel it, live it, demonstrate it. On some spiritual level, it's true. Your job is to embody it in your behavior. You know, body language speaks very loudly and clearly. I want to tell you that I cannot recognize a single face in this crowd. It's just like a blur of faces. And Zoom Farbrengen is an extremely lonely experience. I'm just saying. You guys are living in freedom, and I am living in Canada, in Mitzrayim. I'm allowed to daven together, and that's it. To do such a thing in this country is illegal. To do it, I'm looking at what you're doing. You're violating the law. You could be arrested in Canada for sitting together. I can't see you. I have no sense of who you are. I cannot feel whatever. You like it's like I'm watching some movie of a bunch of blobs on the screen. But nonetheless, my job, schus that I have now, I got a big schus given to me by Rabbi Einan Francis. Rabbi Zeitlin gave me the special privilege that I should sit here in Toronto and I should Farbrengen in Texas. Okay? So I have to make it lahares. I have to make it as if I see you and know you and understand you and appreciate you, and as if you understand and know and appreciate me, and if we're sharing a soul bond together. We are really. I mean, it's the truth. The truth is, kulonu b'nei ish echad, that the Rebbe is not a Rebbe but a father, that b'chol mokem, in every place where it says the notion of a Rebbe and a Talmud, it's not a Rebbe and it's not a Talmud, it says Ovis ubanim, it use the terminology v'shinantum l'vanecha, you should teach your children. Rebbe is not just a mentor, a teacher. The Rebbe is fasa tata. Rebbe's a tate, Rebbe's a father. When every Yid is about to go to shul and puts on his kittel and his talus and he blesses his terrestrial flesh of blood children, the Rebbe would bless the yeshiva students, the bachrim. We're the Rebbe's children. Rebbe's children. It's not a joke. It's a serious thing. It's a serious thing. You come to a chuppah, you have the schus to marry off your son. You know that the Rebbe comes to the chuppah. It's not a joke. A very serious thing. Ernst the Zach, as they say. There becomes v'atate. Tate there becomes, there benches. So the emes is that we really have much more in common than we could possibly imagine. I am who I am only because I had the schus, chesed chinam, I had the schus to see the Rebbe, to hear the Rebbe, the schus to know the Rebbe. You are who you are. We are who we are because of our connection, our iskashus, our relationship with the Rebbe. That's why we are who we are. I would be a very different person. Very different person. You would be different people. If not for Hayem the Kegorim, if not for this incredible day of the Aleph Nissan. So B'Meila, we have a lot in common. We have a lot in common. We're together, the Rebbe's kinderlach, the Rebbe's children gathering together physically, terrestrially, on Zooming, whatever, any which way. But Laharai we have to, it is the emes. The emes is that we are united. The emes is that I don't know a single one of you. I do know you, but I can't recognize any of you. I see so everything is a blur. But I'm supposed to Laharais. I have to demonstrate, to show as if I'm sitting around the table with you and you're watching me on the screen. The whole thing is actually ridiculous. It makes no sense, like Star Trek. It's ridiculous in Farbrengen. Or whatever. Zemash as they say. Oh, I recognize a face.
Come here, Danny. Danny Fishman and I, former Talmidim of Yeshiva Oral Khan and Chabad.
Oh.
Today was Danny Fishman's birthday. So you have to give him Pashat a bracha.
It would be nice if I could see him.
He's coming. He's not red anymore, by the way.
He's not red? Danny. I don't recognize you. You're younger than me. It's a vice board.
Some of us have more stress.
You have more stress. I'm not sure. Danny, I want to give you a bracha. The Eibush does a helping. You should walk your daughter to the chuppah, Mertz Hashem, Bekarev Mamash. L'chaim with a bracha. So, okay, I do know two of you. Now you faded into the background. Not only I know because you came up close, I know who you were, but after Laharis, we go through the motions. And you know what? We go through the motions. We're going to Farbrengen together. We spend time together. And invariably, somehow, we will uplift each other.
Daniel Cutler.
Oh.
Yeah, we know a little bit. Cutler.
Yeah, I know you are.
Daniel Cutler. Yeah, I
Whatever happened with that? Whatever happened?
You remember, right?
Yeah, no. I called the guy.
Oh, I think it was too much for him and his wife. Like, I'm glad you remember.
We can only do our part. In the end, we have to try our best. In the end, whatever. Like it's we have to try our part. Do our best. No?
Yes.
Try it. I called him.
Go ahead. I appreciate it. Thank you.
L'chaim livracha. Good. Yasher koyach. Thanks for coming over. Thanks for helping the Laharos. The Laharos is Tatzmei. Show ourselves. Oh, Dr. Fishman. Dr. Fishman.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem. How are you?
Thank God.
Beautiful to see you. Baruch Hashem.
This is the Farbrengens for Danny.
It's Farbrengen for Danny. It's his birthday.
Danny too. It's his birthday. Yeah.
Very nice. I'm honored to participate. Dr. Fishman,
Good to
L'chaim.
see you. L'chaim. I don't have my place is empty.
Why didn't they give you a case?
I'll give you right. Okay. Where are you? L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, Dr. Fischler.
Go to.
It's wonderful to
Shalom.
see you. It's wonderful to see you. Baruch Hashem.
That's the idea of the whole thing, of the whole game.
I'm looking forward to an in-person visit.
Oh, man, I'd love to have it. We look forward to it. Go
In the
to.
meantime, you escaped Canada. It was a smart thing to do. L'chaim, l'chaim. Anyway, the Rashbam says that the pshat of the Mishnah is laharais. Laharais. Laharais means that we should show ourselves. The Mishnah is talking to us about showing ourselves in a certain way on the night of Pesach. The Rambam says something very similar in the 7th chapter of Hilchos Chametz U'Matzah. The Rambam divides the laws of Matzah from the laws of Korban Pesach, even though Mesechet Pesachim, the tractate of Gemara called Pesachim, which by the way is plural, because it used to be two Mesichtot, 2 chapters, 2 separate tractates. It was Pesach Echad and Pesach Sheni. Tractate 1, which talked about Chametz and Matzah, and Tractate 2, which talked about the Korban Pesach and the observances at the Seder night. At a certain point, the decision was made for them to fuse the 2 tractates together. That's why the only Mesechet in Shas, the only tractate, the only tome in the entirety of the Talmud that is in plural, one of the only actually, it's not the only, Zvachim is also plural, is that we should have it with plurality, not Mesechet Pesach, like Mesechet Yoma, Mesechet Sukkah, Mesechet Rosh Hashanah. By the way, there's Arba Rosh Hashanahs, but it's not called Mesechet Rosh Hashanahs, Mesechet Rosh Hashanah. But when it comes to Pesachim, it's called Pesachim, because there's 2 elements of Pesach. So Rabbi Yehuda Anasi fused them together. The Rambam, in his system of clarifying how everything has its own, so to speak, place, the Rambam said there's Hilchos Chametz U'Matzah, and that goes in the book which is called Zmanim, special time. And then there's a separate book which is called Korbanos. And Korban Pesach is one of those Korbanos. And by the way, it's a very unusual Korban. It's a Korban which fuses together the elements of Korban Tzibur, Korban Yachid, of a private offering and a public offering. You know, this year Shabbos is Erev Pesach. It's a rarity. It's a rarity that Shabbos and Erev Pesach should coincide. And once upon a time, it was much rarer than we have it today. Because the sages did all kinds of things to make sure that Shabbos and Pesach, Erev Pesach, shouldn't fall on the same day, because they didn't want to have to be challenged with what do you do with a Korban Pesach. It seems that for a period of over 100 years, Shabbos and Erev Pesach never coincided. And one year it happened. Try as they might, the Chachamim couldn't prevent it. The questions were asked, the witnesses, the testimony stood up to the litmus tests of the cross-examination. That's it. What are you going to do? Rosh Chodesh Nissan, 14 days later you have to bring a Korban Pesach. The leaders of the Jewish people, Maya and Naftalian, was the Av Bezdin, the Nasi that passed away. We didn't have a new Rebbe. Nobody knew what's going to be. We had the greatest question, the burning question of the time, a question that had not been answered in decades. What do you do when Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos? Nobody had the moral conviction and the strength to be able to answer this question. And for a period of time, the Jewish people were governed spiritually by committee. A committee created a camel. That's why it has 2 humps. It's not a healthy thing to be created by committee. You need to have a Rebbe. You need to have guidance, clarity. But there was nobody had emerged as the decisive Rebbe in the time. And then there's this Erev Shabbos problem and nobody knows what to do. What's the question? Korban Tzibur is Deiche Shabbos. A communal offering deflects, supersedes, transcends, and overrides the limitations of Shabbat. A Korban Yachid, private offering, can never be brought on Shabbos Kodesh. Doesn't work that way. The question is, what is the Korban Pesach? Is it considered a public offering? Or is it considered a private offering? It seems it's a private offering. And nobody knew what to do. Because it would be the first time since the Jewish people were in the desert that the Korban Pesach wouldn't be brought. And there was no records. There was no way to look in the files. What did they do last time? If there was a last time. And the dark horse emerged. His name was Hillel. He was a Babylonian Jew, a foreign import. He was not from Eretz Yisrael stock. He was not recognized by the leadership as being a great star, a luminary, some kind of lodestar who would guide the people. And Hillel said that the Korban Pesach is not a Korban Yachid. It's a Korban Tzibur, because one person cannot bring a Korban Tzibur by himself. One person can't bring a Korban Pesach by himself. On the other hand, it is a Korban Yachid, because you have to be involved in the Korban. But he said, if you're not going to bring it today, Erev Shabbos, when will you bring the Korban? The Rebbe was mechadash, a merdike thing. The Rebbe said that this is actually the deeper meaning of the famous Mishnah. Meina nili, mili. If I am not for myself, if I am not a monui, if I am not included in the Korban Tzibur, mili. So then who am I? In other words, if I'm not involved in the Korban, if I'm not a part of the Korban, then I am not able to fulfill my obligation. But if it's only me alone, money, can one person bring a Korban, a Pesach? The answer is no. So Hillel said it's a Korban Yachid. At the same time, it's a Korban Tzibur. And if you won't bring it today on Shabbos, Emasai, when will you bring the Korban? When will you bring the Korban? There's no other opportunity. Nimnu v'gamnu, at that point, the B'nai B'Seda, the committee rose and said, a new Rebbe has emerged. We have a Rebbe. His name is Hillel. And he became the Rebbe of the Jewish people. He established a new house of rabbinic monarchy. And the Deir HaShvi, the seventh generation from Hillel, was Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, the redactor of the Mishnah. This is the story of this year's Korban Pesach. It's the story of this year's reality that reminds us that the Korban Pesach is a Korban Tzibur, it's a Korban Yachid. If you will not participate and you the Aleph Kislev Farbrengen, you Aleph Nissan Farbrengen, some money, but somebody else will do it for me. And if you won't celebrate your own personal birthday, Annie Fishman, the Rebbe's Heirah, the Rebbe's instruction that every single one of us is important and our birthdays are important and you matter. Every one of us matters. So money. What are you worth if you can't understand and appreciate that? But Chanila Atzmi, if you think it's only about you as an individual, you can't bring a korban like that either. If we're not going to Farbrengen on your Aleph Nissan, when do we Farbrengen? When do you want to Farbrengen? If we can't make time before Pesach, it's before Pesach. It's your Aleph Nissan. When are you going to Farbrengen? When are you going to Farbrengen? This is the day that the Eibishter decided that the incredible neshama of the Rebbe should come down to this world. A generation of pygmies who received the gift of the greatest exalted neshama, millennial neshama, a millennial neshama to pygmies, because we're such pygmies, we're so low. We have such a great Rebbe, Baruch Hashem. It's a schus, it's a gift. And tonight, Yud Aleph Nisan, we say thank you. Say thank you to the Eibishter for giving us such a great Rebbe who loved us and cared for us, a Rebbe who devoted his life to our welfare, and who continues Ma'ala Hala and Eimenu Mishamish Afkan, that just as the Rebbe during his physical terrestrial lifetime devoted himself to the needs of Klal Yisrael, and especially Chassidim, that from Gan Eden the Rebbe continues to implore the Eibishter on our behalf, to beseech on our behalf, offer supplication on our behalf, to bring us bracha. So l'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Thank you, God. Thank you to Bnei Shalom for giving us such a Rebbe. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be all we can be. And even if you don't feel it, chayiv adam liris es atzmi laharis. Rashbam says laharis. Laharis means to, so to speak, to act it out in body language and in communication and verbiage, to act it out. By the way, the Rambam, if you look at the simple print of the Rambam, most print of the Rambam in the Rambam's Haggadah, it also says laharis, which led many people to erroneously believe that the Rambam's version of the Mishnah said laharis. The Mishnah was a halachic Mishnah, only talking about our external body language and prose. But the Rebbe points out that if you look, even Frankel's Rambam acknowledges, which is the most authentic version of Rambam we have today, that if you look back at the early versions, the manuscript versions of Rambam, he says laharis in Hilchos Chametz Umatzah, but in the Haggadah he says liris. The Rambam had the same version. The version of the Rambam's Pirush Mishnayos, the Rambam's version of Mishnayos is like our version of Mishnayos. Liris is atzmai. Laharis is halacha, but the Mishnah says liris. The Meiri also says the same thing. The Meiri also gives the same interpretation of the Rashbam, which seems to be the interpretive approach of the Rambam. Which leads us to the obvious question. What does it mean? What does the Mishnah mean when it says liris es atzmei? How could you see yourself? How does it mean? What does it mean to see yourself as I left Mitzrayim? You believe some kind of some crazy dude, to smoke something and imagine something? I imagined I was leaving Mitzrayim. I didn't leave Mitzrayim. I was never in Egypt. I don't want to be in Egypt. I don't want to go to heaven. Never. I wasn't a slave, Baruch Hashem. I didn't taste it. I didn't know it. My grandfather lived under the jackboot of communism, and I didn't. I only know of house arrest now. For the sin of taking my son to the chuppah, I go into house arrest there. Okay, say that. I'm not forced into slavery. What does it mean? Liris es atzmei. The Rebbe's commentary in the Haggadah, the Rebbe does a very interesting thing. He says, you want to know what means liris es atzmei? Look at the 47th chapter of Tanya. You see the Alter Rebbe says it means not only b'chol der v'der, but b'chol yom v'yom. It's a daily thing. It's a daily thing of being able to transcend the limitations of today, are transcended, which leads me into the broad, spacious vistas of tomorrow. And then 24 hours go by. That which was broad and spacious and open, today, all of a sudden becomes again a narrow strait. Something I have to transcend. I got that already. I did that already. I'm good with that. Now I have to move on. It's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process. We continue to transcend old limitations, to shed old skin, and to be able to come into our potential on a daily basis. B'chol yom v'yom, the Alter Rebbe says, this zehu kol achsidis, the whole essence of Chassidus is to be able to transcend the limitations, natural limitations, organic limitations that the Eibishter imposes upon us, so that we are able to go to the, so to speak, the proverbial next level. And the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim is the story of Avedas Hashem Yisbarach. It's the story of Yiddishkeit. That means Lidus is Atzmei. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Who else is in the crowd? Somebody else has like a white beard over there. Who is it? Bezalel? Bezalel Maranovsky?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Yeah.
Ah?
Yeah.
Bezalel, was macht ihr?
Thank you, God. Chaim Chassidim.
Chaim Bezalel, was macht ihr?
Thank you, God. And we can't sit there and Farbrengen and all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chaim,
לא פשוט. לא פשוט. לחיים, לחיים. So about 8-9 years ago, there's a certain Yid in my community. I was asking him to come to the oil. I wanted him to go. I used to, before this whole COVID mishigas, I used to try for mamash a period of time. I wouldn't let a month go by when I shouldn't be by the oil. I would every month fly to the oil with somebody else. And many amazing stories. Baruch Hashem. We go to the oil together. So there was this Yid. It was a guy I knew, and his, it was time for him to go to the oil. So we end up with this date. He bought tickets. And it happened to be was Ches Tishrei. And unbeknownst to him, I didn't tell him, of course. I was at the oil 2 days before, but that's not the point. It's not his business. So I take a group every year until COVID. I used to take every year Shabbos Slichus. I used to go to the oil with a group. I take a group to the oil. And I came home for Rosh Hashanah. And then I was by the oil Vav Tishrei. My son put on film the first time, so I came back to Toronto Zayin Tishrei. And I was supposed to go again V'ches Tishrei. And he finds out that I was just at the oil twice in the last weeks. He calls me up, he says, "Listen, I just found out you're by the oil twice. I know that you're busy. I'm canceling the tickets." I said, "What are you crazy, man? What are you talking about? What are you canceling the tickets for?" So listen, I can't do it to you. I can't do it to you. It's not fair. I'm not doing it. He said, "Listen, Marsh, if you cancel those tickets, I'm never going to speak to you again. So don't you dare cancel the tickets. Don't cancel those tickets." He said, "But it's not fair to you." I said, "Oh, don't worry about me. For me, to go to the oil is the biggest thing. To have the opportunity to go with you, don't worry about it." Anyway, he doesn't cancel the tickets. We go to the oil. We're sitting there in the front tent, in front by the house of the oil. You know where the sinks are. Where the sinks are in the front tent. Before COVID, there's tables over there. There was a different picture of the Rebbe. Now it's a different picture of the Rebbe on top of the sinks. And we start writing the note. I learn with him a little bit. So we learn a little. Start writing the note. And so he says, "So what is Pein Nun?" He said, "Pein Nun is Pidyon Nefesh." Pidyon Nefesh, he says. Very interesting. So what does Pidyon Nefesh mean? I say redemption of soul. Redemption of soul. He says to me, "Why am I writing redemption of soul on top of my note?" I never asked anybody. Nobody ever told me. I don't know. Why would you write Pidyon Nefesh? You get asked a question, you have to answer. So I read like a tefillah tzara. I said, "God in Himmel, God, give me an answer." The guy asked me a question. I don't know, what's the answer? I have what we call in English an epiphany. A boraka mavrik, a moment, a chochma moment of intuition. I said to Marshall, The first mimer that Rebbe delivered on Yud Shvat, Tavshin Yud Aleph, Yud Shvat 1951, the Rebbe said that he would not do the job for us. He wasn't going to do the job for us. We needed to do the work ourselves. That's what the Rebbe said. But at the same time, the Rebbe said he was going to help us. I said, this is about our personal relationship with the Eibishter. Our personal journey with developing and nurturing a profound connection to God. The Rebbe is able to help us to discover our potential. Like I have a guy in my community who's a professional hockey player. Only Dr. Fishman understands because he's from Toronto. That's the accomplishment in life to play hockey professionally. For a Canadian, this guy, right, Dr. Fishman? No, I didn't know I was there anymore. Anyway, this guy's mother's Jewish. His father is not Jewish. His father was his father played for the Canadians, the Montreal hockey team. Married a Jewish woman, and he produced Jewish children who are hockey players. The guy's a hockey player. So anyway, the truth is he's very assimilated, this guy. But the Eibishter helped. He moved into our neighborhood. And when he had the baby daughter, the Eibishter gave him 3 daughters. Each time he had to name his daughter. So he called the local shul. So I got to know him this way. He came to name his daughters. When COVID's over, I'm going to get back in touch with him. He didn't want to play hockey in Canada. Why? He said, because in the NHL, they beat the living daylights out of you, and you bleed, and you get broken. He said, I realize I can play in Europe, make twice the money, and get half the bruises. He played the 7 seasons in Europe. Now he's retired. The guy's 40, he's retired. He made more money, he got less bruises. He's less famous. He didn't care about that. And he told me about this coach. He had a coach made him all he is. If not for this coach, he had potential. Not this coach made him all he is. He gives all the credit to the coach. Ubitzedek, correctly so. Correctly so. The Rebbe is our coach. He's our coach. The Rebbe, what do you think? You think I can do what I do? I'm not in the service industry. You think I want to be abused by people? Be out of here a long time ago. The easier ways to make a living. I'm not a dumbbell. I can find easy way to make a living. But I don't want to make a living. Rebbe inspired me to devote my life other Yidden. Try to make a difference, real difference, to dent the darkness and to hasten the coming of Mashiach. The truth is that I'm on a personal level not extraordinary in any way. Whatever. I'm another Joe in the army of Joes. But the Rebbe made a global difference, not because he had an outstanding Talmud, Chassid, Shliach. The Rebbe didn't have many outstanding followers. His followers are very, very impoverished and empty. Dal, Ani, Ve'evian, V'chuli. Excuse me. But collectively, we do make a difference. Individually, I don't know how many shluchim are really extraordinary. Most shluchim are very small people who believe there's much to be wanting. But collectively, we make a real difference. That was the Rebbe's gift to the world. It's collective inspiration of getting ordinary people to be part of something extraordinary. By extension, it really incorporates everybody who's sitting around this proverbial table. So I said to him, look, Marshall, you should know that when the Rebbe said that first Maimer, he said this was not about the Rebbe doing things. The Rebbe wanted you to do things. The Rebbe promised to help you to reveal who you are. Pidya nefesh means you have a nefesh, you have a beautiful neshama. But the Rebbe enables you to discover yourself. To you to be all you can be, as the Marines like to say. I said to him, that's Pidya nefesh. Come to the Oyhel to be all we could be. which is not very much perhaps, but it's still more than we'd be otherwise. It makes a difference to Klal Yisrael. It hastens the coming of Mashiach. It makes a contribution to universal global wellness. It accelerates an international move towards a better tomorrow. So he looks at me. He looks at the picture of the Rebbe. It's like on the wall on the side. And he says to me, yeah, he says, yeah. It makes sense. He says, if because of his picture, I became religious. I said, I beg your pardon? What do you mean? No. He says, nothing. Let's write the letter. He says, no. What did you just say? You became religious because of a picture of the Rebbe? He said, it's not important. I said, actually, for me, it's very important. What are you talking about? I never heard you say something like that. He tells me the following story. I want you to know this man was married to a non-Jewish woman. He didn't fast on Yom Kippur, and he didn't eat matzah on Pesach. He says in that state, tells me 11 and a half years ago, I'm married to a non-Jewish woman. I'm eating chametz on Pesach and pork on Yom Kippur, and I'm going into the local supermarket. And a yeshiva boy comes over to me and he says, excuse me, are you Jewish? Would you like to put on tefillin? He says to this guy, this kid, are you nuts? Are you crazy? Like you know who I am? Bug off, he says. I eat on Yom Kippur. Putting on tefillin. Get out of my life and get out of here. So the boy was trained to smile. He hands him the publication, a L'chaim publication, which has a picture of the Rebbe on the front. In Toronto, they reprint. It's not like the nice print in New York. It's a grainy print, a grainy photo of the Rebbe with a big smile. By the way, parenthetically, Rabbi Krinsky was here a few years ago for Shabbos. He told a story that the New York Times once asked for a picture. The Rebbe said, I don't care which picture you give them, but the Iker is Alzheimer Tashmeichel. It should be with a smile. He says, the guy gives me this publication. And he says, I look at it. He says, it's about Torah. I don't know anything about Torah. I have no interest. This is like no interest to me. He says there was this smile. He says, the Rebbe smile. He says, like, I couldn't get over that smile. I said, wow. You'll forgive me. I'm gonna tell you what the guy told me. He said, there's a guy in a red suit in December with a big smile and a white beard. He said, that's what the smile looked like to me. It was a SC smile. He said, I wanted to throw it in the garbage, but I couldn't throw it in the garbage because that SC smile. Okay, so I leave it in the cart, shopping, my non-Jewish child, shopping. One aisle, a second aisle. I keep seeing this smile. I want to throw out the publication, but it's a smile. I never saw such a smile, such a genuine, full soul smile. Wow, it's like an amazing smile. I can't get over a smile. And I tried to throw it out a few times, he says, but the smile kept riveting. It riveted me. So finally, he says, I looked at it. I said, living with times, shmaim, what kind of baloney is this? This is ridiculous. Mashiach matters. Who the hell's Mashiach? Is all ridiculous to me. I couldn't relate to anything in this publication. I turn it over to the back page. It says it happened once. A story, okay. I like stories. Who doesn't like stories? It's a story. The guy is there. Mendel Zeitlin, where are you, Mendel Zeitlin? I'm on your Zoom. There, Mendel Seitlin is around. You from Toronto, Mendel Seitlin? It's probably before Mendel Seitlin's memory. It was called Sobeys. Mendel, you still here? I didn't put.
I'm using my brother's account. That's it.
Oh, you're Shmuley Zeitlin. You were in Zevi's class?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I remember you like a little boy. You remember IGA or just Sobeys?
Just Sobeys.
Okay. So when you were a little boy, it used to be called IGA. So the guy says, I'm shopping in the IGA before it was Sobeys. He says, I can't throw away this piece of paper. I can't throw it away. The guy has an amazing smile. It's an amazing smile. I have such a smile. I read the story. So what could the story be about in Chaim? Some guy was persecuted with some Russian, whatever, some Polish warlord, and he wanted to take away his inn and throw him in the slammer, and he said, "Till him," and he got saved. Okay. So I read the story. I said, "Wow, really?" The guy said he said Tehillim and got saved. He says, "I wonder what a Tehillim is. Maybe I could get saved." Tells me I was in the middle of a terrible court case, a huge dispute with a partner of mine. He says, Tillim, you say, Tillim, you get saved. He said, I left the IGA with my Goyish baby. I put the groceries in the car. And I decided to go, there's a Shmuley, Mendel, I don't know whoever he is over there in Texas over there. He knows there's a store right next to Sobeys, which used to be called IGA, which is called Israel's, so Hebrew bookstore. He goes to the Hebrew bookstore with the L'chaim. He says, do you have a book called, he's like reading for the thing, Tehillim? You have a Tehillim? So they said, Psalms? He said, I don't know, whatever it says over here, Tehillim. Yes, Tehillim, yeah, Psalms. This is before Kahas put out a beautiful Tehillim, sponsored by the Glowinski family from our community. So at that time, the only good English translation was Art Scroll. So they gave him the brown Tehillim. He says, you want this? So, is that the Tehillim? That's a Tehillim? Yeah, it's fine. He buys a Tehillim, goes home. Court case is the next day. And he says Tehillim a whole night. He says the entire Sefer Tehillim. From beginning till the end, in English. He never went to sleep that night. In the morning, as day breaks, he finishes Tehillim, he takes a shower, drinks a coffee, and he goes off to meet his lawyer to go to the courtroom. This is the big day. He said the whole Tehillim, with emunah pshuta, pure faith in Hashem. Tells me, my lawyer says to me, Marshall, you can't win this case. You don't have a leg to stand on. Just settle. Take the losses. Lick your chops. You know what I mean? Like he says, lick your wounds and move on. You're never going to win this case. You don't have, the judge is not going to be favorable to you. And this guy Marshall says, no. I said to him a whole night, we're going to the case. We're going to the courtroom. The lawyer says, look, this is Marsh. You pay me the big bucks. I'm your lawyer. I'm telling you, it's zelo shayach, as we say in French in Quebec. Zelo shayach. It's not going to work. You're going to lose your pants. Listen what I'm telling you. You don't stand a chance. Give it up. The guy's like, nope. I said, tell him, I'm going to the courtroom. The lawyer said, okay, listen, if you want to be crazy, man, you do whatever you want. I'm telling you right now, you don't stand a chance. Okay, so they go to the court. And he comes with emunah pshuta. Emunah pshuta. I said the whole Tehillim. And he wins the court case. He wins the court case. He wins everything. The judge rules in his favor. So on the way out, the lawyer tells him, he says, Marsh, this is a freaking miracle. That's Bill Shainai, a freaking miracle. He says, of course. He says, of course. I said the whole Tillim. Of course. He says, now I saw that this works, he says. This is the real deal. The real deal. So he said, so I decided to look more into this. Hey, the Im Kain, say, Ebasei, Ebasamaisa. So first I went to a Reform temple. The rabbi was wearing a mini skirt, was strumming a guitar. I said, this is not the Tillim that I read about in that story. And the lady in the mini skirts, it's not the same thing. It doesn't make sense. No. Doesn't make sense. Okay. So he said, then I went to a local conservative synagogue. It's actually a synagogue down the block from us. It's called Part of Israel. So it was whatever, some old people, some Maisa, like, this is not that story. This is not, the story of a Tillim is not that story. So from there, I went to a religious synagogue, whatever. He says, Bekitzer Maisa, the end is his wife became a Gierdis. His son was Megayer. By the way, the son's a yeshiva bacher today. And whatever, he said, and he said to me, you know, I realized on that day sitting at the oil that it was the Rebbe's smile that changed my life. So he said, now I understand the meaning of Pidyon. I know what Pidyon Nefesh means. So the Rebbe helped me to become Panim El Panim with the Eibishter himself. As a result of the Rebbeinu Shalom, as a result that I had a connection to I saw a picture of the Rebbe, that I came home to Yiddishkeit. This is the Pidyon Nefesh. This is what it's about, my friends. The Rebbe is Megala Pnimiyus Anashama. His Getlach away, the Rebbe Goen Eliki has a way of touching each and every one of us, of revealing the Pnimiyus Shama that's in each and every one of us. And as they say in French, Ze lo pashut. Ze lo pashut. It's not simple. Mala Allah Neimed the Mishamish of Khan Zora says that tzaddikim like this, millennial tzaddikim, they continue to be mashpia, they continue to influence and to change us. You know, there's a story that was recently revealed. Rabbi Marinovsky, at this point, probably is sleeping already. I don't blame him, I would sleep also. But he heard the story, but most of you probably didn't hear the story yet. There's a Lubavitcher Chassid, his name is David Nachshon. David Nachshon is a crazy guy. He's a crazy guy. But he was a soldier. He's a soldier from the Rebbe. Like we are on ideological opposite sides, but he's a Chassid soldier. Can't knock him. What all the damage he's done and all the craziness about him, it's a soldat. So David Nachshon, I don't know what happened in Israel. I don't know who won the elections yet. But I do remember the first time Bibi came to the Rebbe. It was Simchas Torah, Tavshim Mem Zayin, 1986. I was a 15-year-old boy and a 16-year-old boy. And this guy I remember Bibi, he was a slim guy at the time. He was before quarantine. He was a slim guy, with black hair, slim guy, handsome guy. My place was pretty close to the front of 770. And this guy shows up at HaKafas and the Rebbe speaks to him for an hour. It was crazy. You can't imagine what it was like. Some Torah, we're getting killed. And I was talking to some guy. I was was standing next to my father. I was like, to my father. I said to my father, "Who is this guy?" My father said, "This is Yoni Netanyahu's baby brother. Just appointed to the UN." The Rebbe spoke and spoke and spoke. By the way, there was a guy who was standing next to him. His name is Alan Baker. It's a story for himself. Alan Baker was the Israeli ambassador to Kaplan. He was with Bibi at the time. And there's a whole story about it. Whatever. It's a story. Anyway, the Rebbe spoke and spoke and spoke to Bibi. That was the famous thing that Rebbe said. You're in the UN, a house of darkness, light a candle. How did Bibi come to the Rebbe? The Rebbe says, Bibi. Jem just released a video. Netanyahu, the Rebbe says, me, Bibi? Bibi? So there was a guy named Shmaria who actually was in the Sayeret Matkal, a high level, he was a commando in the IDF. He served under Bibi's command. And Israelis don't have to keep a second of the Yom Tov. And Shmaria went to get Bibi to come to the Rebbe. Rabbi Marinovsky, if he's not sleeping yet, he remembers Shmaria very well. Shmaria originally came in a real...
I slept with him in one apartment.
Shmaria Harel.
I slept together with Shmaria in one apartment.
Really? Okay. When?
And it was freezing cold that my Negelwasser froze.
In Russia?
No, in New York. The yeshiva gave us an apartment without heat. And the mice froze, and I couldn't wash Negelwasser in the morning. The Negelwasser froze. And so I stayed in bed under the blanket, freezing. I couldn't get out. And Shmaria jumped out of bed for Seder Siddur. And he says, Gewalt, Martin, you scream. Martin, you scream to him, that's why I knew Shmaria is. He joined National.
Shmaria was a real commando. Anyway, he was under Bibi's command, and Shmaria came like a chassid, and he said, Bibi, Avola Rebbe koreh otcha. And Shmaria brought him to the Rebbe. Shmaria was Nachshon's best buddy. They were the Yad Achas together, best buddies. Lo pashut. He brought Bibi to the Rebbe. The Rebbe spent a lot of time. Nobody understood at the time why the Rebbe invested so much time. But Tzaddik is Erzerula. Tzaddik, the Rebbe planted the seeds. What's going on now? So Shmaria got him to come to the Rebbe. I'm going to move you actually to a new location because I'm waking up the baby apparently. Move to a new location. Anyway, Shmaria got him to come to the Rebbe, and there were, the story happened with Bibi. I got some ice, the whole story. By the way, I was in Israel. The exact about. Moshe, close the door, please. So Chana doesn't wake up. Bring me a napkin, please, because I spilled it away. Thank you. Hope you don't mind. We changed locations. I'm waking up the baby. Apparently, it's not. My wife is not happy. Okay. So Shmaria brought Bibi to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe did things through Bibi, like lo pashut, as they say. About 10 years ago, when Bibi was running for re-election the first time, I was in Israel with a group of people from the shul, and it was running for re-election. And Bibi was on the porch of the David Citadel. He was having tea with Sarah Netanyahu. So the guys in my shul came over to me and said, "Go yell at him, tell him no shtachim, all the things you scream from the pulpit." And all of a sudden, the Yetzer Hara had control of me. And I was like, who are me? I'm going to go tell this guy he's a big Israeli politician. And they started to yell at guys who were pounding me. And one of the guys went and brought him a bottle of wine. Now I was already ashamed. But this same guy, Marshall, by the way, was in Israel with us. The same guy, Marshall. So Marshall said, Rabbi, don't worry. I'm going to take you. I'm going to take you. I'll take a bullet for you, he said. Don't worry. He's a great guy. He's an amazing guy. And we go to the porch. My Pasha was embarrassed. I got shamed into it. We go to the porch and I see the Shin Bet guys come out and they go like Neshek. And Marshall, this is my rabbi from Toronto, blah, 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 blah. They go, yeah, whatever. No, Neshek, fine, go. I was with my wife with two of the babies, two of the kids. And we go over and Bibi's there with us. And I said, shalom. I said to Bibi, I remember when you came Simchas Torah to the Rebbe. I was a boy. I was only 16 years old. I remember you were there. And I said, I had the distinction of going to the same school as you in Philadelphia at Elkins Park. Elkins Park. Oh yeah, my father was in Temple University. Okay. So we start talking about Simchas Torah when he was by the Rebbe. This is before he spoke about it in the UN. And I said, the Rebbe told you to light a candle of dark, hold a candle of light in a house of darkness. I said, tell him what the Rebbe said to him. He told me what the Rebbe said. Yes, the Rebbe said to me, the UN is a house of darkness. Light a candle, light will be seen from afar. And I said to him, I'm sure that soon you're going to be elected prime minister here in Israel. And I hope you don't make the same mistakes again. This time you listen to the Rebbe. He says to me, what do you mean? I said, you know exactly what I mean. Don't give away shtachim. I said, don't give away land to the enemies of Israel. I said, listen to the Rebbe and everything's going to be fine. He says to me, you see that over there? And he points to the walls of Ir Atika. I said, yeah. He says, Shalanu. I said, Le'olam. It says, Shalanu. I said, Le'olam. Don't make the same mistake again. Anyway, listen, I can't claim any credit, but the reality is that the next Erev Yom Kippur, he said the story of the UN in the UN. He said what the Rebbe's words in the UN. And 2 years later, I was with a group with the Prime Minister of Canada at the time, Stephen Harper, and we met with Netanyahu and Harper. And Netanyahu says, what should I speak about tonight? It was a state dinner. What should I speak about tonight? And Chaim Mendelson says, he's with me from Ottawa, he says, why don't you speak about what the Rebbe told you on Simchas Torah? He says, you think so? I say, yeah. And he spoke about that. He said the story again over there. Anyway, Shmar Yeharel brought Bibi to the Rebbe. He brought Bibi to the Rebbe. And he was one with David Nachshon. They were best buddies. I don't know why. Maybe Rabbi Marinovsky knows better. But Shmaya and David got into a huge fight at some point. They had a big falling out. Didn't speak for maybe 20 years. After Gimel Tamas. I don't know what there was. Whatever. People have falling outs. They had a dispute of falling out. I don't think it was ideological. I think it was financial. I don't know what it was, but they had a huge falling out. A few months ago, David Nachshon decided, Sinishkin Tachlis, I have to make peace. Gadol Hashalom. He decided he's going to get together with Shmar Yeharel. 6 months ago already, with Sukkot, they got together in the Sukkah and they had a Farbrengen together. Yishtov Yishkur Ime, they drank and they said L'chaim and they were elevated and they had a Farbrengen. And they made peace. Next time David Nachshon came to New York was the time of Kinus HaShluchim. I didn't have the privilege of being in New York then because I wasn't allowed to leave Canada, but some Shluchim came to New York, and Yankel Chazan, another guy who I'm not on the same ideological territory with, but whatever, he's a chassid. Comes over to to Reb David, and he says, Reb David, we're going through Rabbi Groner's things. We found that there is a zettel from the Rebbe to you and Shmar Yaharel. And the note said, the Rebbe wrote, was that they should give the Kuntras Avas Yisrael, the booklet called Loving Your Fellow Jew as Yourself. The Rebbe wrote, the David Nachshon, Ulashmar Yaharel. I have the Ksaviyat Kodesh. I have the actual writing of the Rebbe. The Rebbe writes with like a line around, bracket around, bracketed, that they should give it to Shmar Yaharel and David Nachshon. 20 years after they had a fight, they made peace. They transcended their differences. They had Avas Yisrael. 20 years later, the Rebbe, Ksaviyat Kodesh, the David Nachshon, Lashmar Yaharel, to give it to them. The Rebbe said Bishmi, in my name, Bechasimasi, with my signature. A kuntas of Avas Yisrael. The Rebbe lives with us, between us, amongst us. Mala Alan, Imid Mishamish Afkan. The Rebbe gefindt a Weg. The Rebbe finds a way. And I wissen that we have the privilege to be Chassidim of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe was Megala, our Pnimius Anashama, who we really are. That we should be elevated, that we should be uplifted, we should become all we can become. And this is exactly what it's all about, my friends. This is the great day that the Eibishter, in his infinite wisdom, decided to send the Rebbe's holy neshama into our world. And as the Gemara Megillah Meseches Megillah says, Kedai HaMisa, Aleida Shetachapet Al HaMisa, the birth for millennial tzaddikim is far more powerful and impactful than terrestrial passings. That the birth is an eternal reality, and that the Rebbe's neshama remains with us. So, l'chaim, the Eibishter is all helping that we should strengthen ourselves in our kashrus. We should live the way the Eibishter expects of us, the Rebbe wanted us to live. In turn, we should be zeicha, leave behind this ridiculous, seemingly superfluous galus, and we should be able to see we should be zeicha to zenzach ben Rebbe Merz Hashem in the third Beis Hamikdash b'meiro b'yameinu amen. L'chaim, l'chaim l'uvracha. All right, Shmuley, I think I chased away most of your crowd already. Let's call it a successful keynote speech. I have to now close the lights. Yeah, no?
Very geschmack.
Good.
Very meaningful, very geschmack.
All right, fine. Baruch
People
Hashem.
that kind of fell asleep on the benches under the floor, they'll definitely be wanting to hear. Very meaningful.
Baruch Hashem. Good, l'chaim. L'chaim l'uvracha.
Thank you very much. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Kosher v'sameach. Freilich and Yiraf nissen to you all. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Kaplan.
L'chaim l'uvracha. Take care. L'chaim l'uvracha.